Marcus Thompson stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his executive office on the 45th floor, staring at the city lights below. The clock on his expensive mahogany desk showed 9:30 p.m. Another late night at Thompson Technologies, but this time was different. The 45-year-old CEO wasn't working on business deals or checking profit margins. Instead, he was looking at something that made his heart heavy: employee satisfaction surveys. The office around him screamed success. Awards lined the walls, showing the company's rise over the past decade. Modern art pieces worth thousands of dollars decorated the space. But right now, none of that mattered to Marcus. His dark brown eyes focused on the papers in his hands, and his forehead wrinkled with concern. "This can't be right," he muttered, adjusting his perfectly tailored navy blue suit. The survey results painted a troubling picture. While Thompson Technologies was making more money than ever, the people working there weren't happy. Comments like "management doesn't understand our challenges," and "we're just numbers to them," kept appearing. Marcus walked back to his desk and sank into his leather chair. He picked up a framed photo of his father, the man who had started this company from nothing. "Dad, what would you do?" he whispered. His father had always said that a company was only as good as its people, but somewhere along the way, Marcus had lost sight of that. Just then, his office door opened. Janet Powell, his executive assistant for the past 8 years, walked in with a concerned look on her face. "Mr. Thompson, it's getting late. Shouldn't you be heading home?" she asked, noticing the troubled expression on his face. Marcus looked up at Janet, suddenly remembering something. "Janet, how long did it take maintenance to fix your broken chair last month?" Janet's expression changed. "3 weeks, sir. I had to keep reminding them." "3 weeks?" Marcus was shocked. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Well, sir," Janet hesitated, "you're very busy with important things. A chair didn't seem worth bothering you about." Those words hit Marcus hard. If his own executive assistant felt this way, what about the hundreds of other employees? He stood up suddenly, startling Janet. "I need to understand what's really happening in my company," he declared. "Not through reports or surveys, but by experiencing it myself." Janet watched curiously as Marcus began pacing the room, his energy completely different now. "What are you thinking, sir?" Marcus stopped and turned to her. "The reception desk on the ground floor. Didn't Lisa just quit?" "Yes, sir. Last week. We're using temp workers for now." A smile spread across Marcus's face. "Perfect. Janet, I need your help with something crazy. But first, you have to promise to keep it absolutely secret." Janet nodded, intrigued. "I'm going to work as a receptionist in my own company," Marcus announced. "Undercover." Janet's eyes widened. "Sir, are you serious? But everyone knows who you are." Marcus walked to his computer and pulled up some photos. "Not if we do this right. I haven't visited the lower floors in months. Most employees only see me in suits at company meetings or in newsletter photos. With some changes to my appearance and the right story, it could work." He continued explaining his plan. He would tell the board he was taking 2 weeks to visit international offices. Meanwhile, his trusted COO, David Chen, would handle the day-to-day operations. Marcus would work as a temp receptionist named Mike Taylor. "But sir," Janet protested, "you've never worked a reception desk before. The systems, the procedures." "Then I'll learn," Marcus said firmly. "My father started as a janitor before building this company. He never forgot what it was like to work at every level. Somewhere along the way, I did." Looking at the city lights again, Marcus felt more certain about this decision. "I need to understand what my employees really go through, not just read about it in surveys." Janet finally smiled, seeing the determination in her boss's eyes. "Well, sir, if we're going to do this, we need to start planning. You'll need a completely different wardrobe, for one thing, and we'll have to work on your typing speed." Marcus laughed, feeling excited for the first time in weeks. "First thing tomorrow, we start working on my transformation. But Janet, remember, this stays between us." As Janet left his office, Marcus looked at his father's photo again. This time, he could almost see the old man smiling with approval. Tomorrow would be the start of something big, even if nobody else knew it yet. The next morning, Janet watched in amazement as Marcus Thompson emptied his closet full of designer suits. They were in his luxury apartment, preparing for his transformation into Mike Taylor. Expensive clothes flew onto his king-size bed as Marcus searched for anything that might work for his undercover role. "This won't do," Janet said, holding up a $500 casual shirt. "Even your casual clothes look too expensive. We need to shop at regular stores." Marcus stopped and looked at his reflection in the full-length mirror. Everything about him screamed CEO, from his perfect haircut to his expensive watch. "You're right. We need to change everything." Their first stop was a local department store. Marcus felt strange walking through the aisles, looking at clothes he hadn't bought since college. Janet helped him pick out simple button-down shirts, basic black pants, and comfortable shoes that looked well-worn but professional. "Remember," Janet reminded him, "Mike Taylor is a temp worker. He can't afford fancy things." In the fitting room, Marcus tried on his new outfit. The clothes felt different. Not bad, just different. The fabric wasn't as soft, and the fit wasn't perfect like his tailored suits. But that was exactly what they wanted. Next, they visited Sarah, a professional makeup artist who had worked with theater companies. Janet had told her they needed to make Marcus look different for a family reason. Sarah took one look at Marcus and got to work. "We'll use subtle makeup to make your face look slightly different," Sarah explained as she worked. "Nothing dramatic, just enough so people won't connect you with the CEO photos they've seen." She showed Marcus how to apply the makeup himself. That would make his face look slightly rounder, his cheekbones less sharp. She also helped him choose different glasses, thick-framed ones instead of his usual expensive designer pair. "Now for the hair," Sarah said. Marcus's perfectly styled haircut was too recognizable. She trimmed it differently, making it look more ordinary. She also showed him how to style it in a messier way. Back at his apartment, Marcus practiced his new walk. "CEOs walk with confidence, like they own the room," Janet observed. "You need to walk more. Normally. Maybe even add a slight shuffle." Marcus spent hours practicing in front of his mirror. He learned to smile differently, to make his voice less commanding. They even created a whole backstory for Mike Taylor. "Mike is 45, just like you," Janet said, reading from her notebook. "He's between jobs and doing temp work to pay the bills. He lives in a small apartment across town. He's friendly but not too chatty." Marcus repeated these details over and over until Mike Taylor felt real to them. They also worked on practical skills. Janet set up a computer with the same software the reception desk used. "Your typing is too fast and accurate," she noticed as Marcus practiced. "Slow it down a bit. Make a few mistakes." They spent the afternoon practicing phone calls. Marcus had to learn to sound less authoritative, to say, "Let me check," instead of giving immediate answers. "One more thing," Janet said, pulling out a simple wedding ring. "Mike's married. It'll help explain why you can't go to after-work drinks if anyone asks." As evening approached, Marcus looked at himself in the mirror again. The man staring back at him was different. His expensive watch was replaced with a simple one from the department store. His perfect posture was now slightly relaxed. Even his smile looked different, less confident, more ordinary. "I think we're ready," Janet said, standing beside him. "Tomorrow, Mike Taylor starts his first day as a temp receptionist." Marcus nodded, feeling nervous for the first time in years. "What if someone recognizes me?" "Most employees only see you from a distance at company meetings," Janet reminded him. "And let's be honest, how many of them really look at the reception staff?" That comment made Marcus feel sad, but it was exactly why he needed to do this. He packed his new clothes into a worn backpack Janet had bought. His designer briefcase would have been too obvious. "Remember?" Janet said as she prepared to leave. "I'm your only contact. If there's an emergency, text me. Otherwise, you're on your own." Marcus looked around his expensive apartment one last time. For the next 2 weeks, he would live in a small rental unit near the office, the kind of place Mike Taylor could afford. "Tomorrow," he said quietly, "I become invisible." Janet smiled encouragingly. "Not invisible, sir. You'll just be seeing things from a different angle." At 7:30 a.m. sharp, Mike Taylor, formerly known as Marcus Thompson, walked through the front doors of Thompson Technologies. His heart was beating fast as he entered the building he walked into thousands of times before, and never like this. The security guard, Robert Jenkins, looked up from his desk. "You must be the new temp," Robert said with a friendly smile. "I'm Robert. Let me show you to the reception desk." Mike followed Robert, trying to remember to walk less confidently. The lobby looked different from this angle. The marble floors that he'd always thought were impressive now seemed cold and unwelcoming. The huge company logo on the wall felt like it was staring down at him. "Here's your desk," Robert said, pointing to a chair that looked worn out. "Passwords on that sticky note. Good luck. Morning rush starts in about 20 minutes. Mike sat down and immediately noticed the chair wobbled. He remembered signing off on the lobby renovation budget last year. Where had that money gone? The computer took forever to start up, making strange noises that worried him. At 8 a.m., the morning rush began. Employees poured through the doors like a river. Some walked past without even glancing at him. Others barely looked up from their phones as they tossed their IDs on his desk for verification. "Excuse me," a woman in an expensive suit snapped at him. "I forgot my ID card. I'm Jennifer Parker, marketing director. Just let me through." Mike checked the protocol sheet Janet had prepared for him. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but I need to verify your identity and call your department head first." Jennifer's face turned red. "This is ridiculous. Do you know who I am?" "I'm new here, ma'am." "Just following procedures," Mike said quietly, feeling strange to be talked down to by someone he had personally hired 2 years ago. The morning got busier. The phone wouldn't stop ringing. The computer system crashed twice. Mike's fingers fumbled over the keyboard as he tried to log visitor information. His new shoes pinched his feet, and the chair's wobble was giving him a backache. Around 10:30 a.m., Robert brought him a cup of coffee. "Rough morning, huh?" the security guard said kindly. "Don't worry, you'll get the hang of it." Mike thanked him, touched by this simple act of kindness. As CEO, no one had brought him coffee in years. He had people for that. Just before lunch, a young employee approached his desk, looking nervous. "Hi, I'm Sarah Chen from accounting. I'm running late because my bus broke down. Could you please not report it? My supervisor already gave me 2 warnings this month." Mike looked at Sarah's tired face and remembered the strict punctuality policy he'd approved last year. He hadn't considered how it might affect employees who relied on public transport. "Don't worry about it," he said gently. "These things happen." The relief on Sarah's face made his stomach tight. During his lunch break, Mike couldn't use the executive lounge he was used to. Instead, he sat in the crowded employee break room, eating a sandwich he'd packed. The conversations around him were eye-opening. "Can't believe they're making us work overtime again," someone said. "Yeah, and the heating's still broken on the 3rd floor," another added. "But hey, did you see the CEO's new company car in the parking lot?" A third person laughed bitterly. Mike almost choked on his sandwich. He thought the car was a reasonable executive expense, but hearing it discussed this way made him see it differently. The afternoon brought more challenges. The delivery man needed him to sign for packages, while 3 people waited at his desk. The printer jammed. Someone spilled coffee near his desk, and he had to call maintenance. Each small crisis felt huge from this perspective. By 5 p.m., Mike's back ached, his head hurt, and his feet were killing him. As employees streamed out, he noticed many gave tired smiles to Robert, but didn't even glance his way. He was invisible, just part of the lobby furniture. As he packed up to leave, Robert stopped by again. "You did good today, Mike. First days are always tough. It gets better." Mike nodded, too tired to speak. Walking to the bus stop, his driver was definitely not an option for Mike Taylor. He thought about how this was only day 1. He had 13 more days to go, and already he was seeing his company in a completely different light. By his 4th day as Mike Taylor, Marcus was getting better at his receptionist duties. His typing was faster, and he'd learned how to handle multiple tasks at once. But what really caught his attention were the stories he was beginning to uncover about his employees' lives. That morning, Sarah Chen from accounting arrived early, looking exhausted. She slumped against the reception desk while waiting for the elevator. "Everything okay?" Mike asked, genuinely concerned. Sarah sighed. "Just tired. My first bus broke down again, so I had to wait 30 minutes for the next one. Then I missed my second connection. That's why I leave home at 5:30 a.m. in case something goes wrong." Mike's eyes widened. "You take 2 buses to work?" "3, actually," Sarah corrected him. "Can't afford the parking fees here. It's $200 a month for the garage, and I'm still paying off my mom's medical bills." She laughed sadly. But hey, at least I'm not late today. As Sarah walked away, Mike remembered approving the parking fee increase last year. The extra revenue had seemed like a smart business decision at the time. Later that morning, he overheard James Rodriguez from maintenance talking to Robert, the security guard. James was looking at his phone with a worried expression. "Hospital bills?" Robert asked quietly. James nodded. "Yeah. Emily's treatments cost $2,000 a month, even with our company insurance. I'm working at the gas station on weekends now, but it's still not enough." Mike felt his chest tighten. Emily was James's 8-year-old daughter who had diabetes. He remembered cutting back on the company's health insurance coverage to save costs. Around lunchtime, Maria Gonzalez from the cleaning staff came to the lobby. She was helping an elderly employee who had slipped on the wet floor near the elevators. The floor sign was there, Maria explained to Mike as they waited for first aid to arrive. "But the lighting is so bad in that corner. I've sent 3 maintenance requests about it." Mike checked the maintenance log on his computer. Maria was right. The requests were there, marked low priority. The same lighting that he'd decided wasn't urgent enough to fix immediately. In the afternoon, Mike watched Jennifer Parker, the marketing director who had been rude to him earlier in the week, making a young intern cry. "If you can't handle the pressure, maybe you shouldn't be here," Jennifer snapped. "This is a prestigious company, not a charity." The intern, trying to hide her tears, rushed past Mike's desk to the bathroom. He remembered promoting Jennifer because of her strong leadership style and results-oriented approach. During his coffee break, Mike sat with Robert in the security office, something he'd started doing to learn more about the building's daily life. "You know what's funny?" Robert said, showing Mike some old company photos. "This place used to feel like a family. Mr. Thompson Sr., the founder, he knew everyone's names. Had an open-door policy. These days, management is so focused on profits, they forget we're all human." Mike felt shame wash over him. His father had built this company on caring for people, not just numbers. Near the end of the day, he overheard 2 middle managers talking as they waited for their Uber. "Did you see the memo? They're cutting the education assistance program," one said. "Yeah, but they just spent millions renovating the executive floors," the other replied bitterly. Mike remembered signing off on both decisions. The education program cuts had saved the company $500,000 annually, the same amount he'd spent on new artwork for the executive floor. As he packed up for the day, Lisa from HR stopped by his desk. "Mike, how are you settling in?" "Fine," he replied. "Just learning a lot about how things really work here." Lisa nodded sadly. "You know, I've been here 15 years. Used to love coming to work. Now," she trailed off, looking around the lobby. "Sometimes I wonder if anyone up there knows what it's like down here." On his bus ride home, Mike thought about everything he'd learned. Each conversation, each overheard story, showed him how disconnected he'd become from his employees' reality. He'd been so focused on profits and growth that he'd forgotten his father's most important lesson. A company's true worth isn't in its bank account, but in its people. Back in his temporary apartment, Mike sent a coded text to Janet. "We need to make big changes." Then he sat down and began making notes about everything he'd seen and heard. The transformation needed to start at the top, and it needed to start with him. On his 5th day as Mike Taylor, Marcus witnessed something that would change everything. It started early in the morning when a group of junior employees were waiting for the elevator. The lobby was crowded, and all 4 elevators were busy. David Wilson, the senior vice president of sales, stormed into the lobby. He was a tall man who always wore expensive suits and had a reputation for being tough. Mike had always thought this toughness was good for business. Today, he would see another side of David. "Move aside," David barked at the junior employees waiting for the elevator. "This is the executive elevator. Use the other ones." A young black woman named Tanya, whom Mike recognized from the IT department, spoke up quietly. "Sir, all the other elevators are full, and we're running late for a meeting." David's face turned red. "I don't care. This elevator isn't for your kind. Know your place." The lobby went silent. Mike felt his hands shake as he watched. From his desk, you could see the hurt and anger on Tanya's face, but she stepped aside. No one said anything as David entered the elevator alone. Mike quickly typed a note about what happened, his fingers trembling with anger. As CEO, He'd never seen this side of David. But now he wondered, how many times had this happened before? Later that morning, Mike overheard Linda Martinez from Human Resources talking to another employee. "I tried to report Wilson's behavior last month," she whispered. "But my complaint disappeared. They said there wasn't enough evidence." Around lunchtime, more troubling incidents occurred. Mike watched as older employees were seated together in the cafeteria while younger ones sat separately. He noticed how the maintenance staff, mostly people of color, were treated like they were invisible. "It's always been like this," Robert the security guard told him during their coffee break. "Some people here think they're better than others. Not everyone, but enough to make it hurt." In the afternoon, a young Asian employee named Kevin tried to use the executive bathroom because the regular one was out of order. Another executive, Patricia Myers, saw him and made a huge scene. "This is absolutely unacceptable," she shouted. "I'm reporting this to HR. These people need to learn their boundaries." Kevin looked humiliated as he walked past Mike's desk. "I just needed to use the bathroom," he said quietly. Mike remembered how proud he'd been of the company's diversity statistics in their annual report. But now he saw the ugly truth hiding behind those numbers. Having diverse employees meant nothing if they weren't treated with respect. The final straw came near the end of the day. A group of executives was walking through the lobby, including David Wilson. They were laughing about something. "Did you see that email from the Diversity Committee?" One of them chuckled. "They want inclusive leadership training. What a waste of time and money. Next thing you know, they'll want us to give up our parking spots," another joked. Mike watched them walk away, feeling sick to his stomach. These were people he had promoted, people he had trusted to lead his company. As he was getting ready to leave, Tanya from the morning elevator incident stopped by his desk. Her eyes were red, and she was carrying a box with her personal items. "I'm giving my 2 weeks' notice," she told him. "I can't take it anymore. 5 years of education, 2 degrees, and I'm still treated like I don't belong here." Mike wanted to tell her who he really was. He wanted to fix everything right then and there. But he knew he needed to see more to understand the full extent of the problem. That night, in his temporary apartment, Mike couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about his father, who had built this company from nothing. His father had believed in giving everyone a fair chance, in treating people with dignity. "I'm sorry, Dad," he whispered in the darkness. "I let things go so wrong, but I promise I'm going to fix it." He got up and started writing on his notepad. The changes needed wouldn't be easy. Some people would resist, but now that he had seen the truth with his own eyes, there was no going back. Thomson Technologies needed more than just policy changes. It needed a complete cultural transformation. And it would start with people like David Wilson learning that actions have consequences. Mike arrived extra early for his 6th day at work, just before 6:00 a.m. He wanted to meet the cleaning staff who worked when most employees were still sleeping. As he walked in, he saw them quietly moving through the building like shadows. Maria Gonzalez, the head of housekeeping, was surprised to see him so early. "Everything okay, Mike?" she asked, pushing her cleaning cart. "Just wanted to start early," he smiled. "Mind if I help you with those trash bins?" Maria looked shocked. No one had ever offered to help before. As they worked together, she started talking about her life. Mike learned that she had graduated with a business degree 3 years ago, taking night classes while working full-time. "I've applied for 6 different office positions here," Maria said, wiping down a desk. "They always say I need more experience. But how do I get experience if no one gives me a chance?" Another cleaner, Tose, joined their conversation. He was in his 50s and had worked at Thomson Technologies for 15 years. "My son just got accepted to college," he said proudly. "First in our family. But with the education assistance program being cut, I don't know how we'll afford it." Mike remembered the memo about cutting that program. He had signed it without thinking about people like Tose. Around 7:00 a.m., the morning kitchen staff arrived. Mike helped them unload their deliveries since the service elevator was broken again. The cook, Mrs. Chen, gave him a free coffee as thanks. "You're different from the other office people," she said with a kind smile. "Most of them don't even see us." During his lunch break, Mike sat with Robert the security guard again. They had become friends over the past few days. Robert shared photos of his daughter's recent school play. "Couldn't go," Robert said sadly. "Had to work overtime that night." The new security schedule doesn't allow for swapping shifts anymore. Mike felt guilty, remembering he had approved that policy to cut costs. In the afternoon, Mike noticed Lisa from accounting crying in the break room. He brought her a tissue and listened as she shared her story. Her mother was sick, and she needed flexible hours to take her to doctor's appointments. HR said no. Lisa wiped her eyes. They said if they make an exception for me, everyone will want it. I might have to quit my job. Later, the maintenance team was fixing a broken window near his desk. Tom, the head maintenance worker, talked about his 20 years at the company while he worked. Used to be we could talk directly to the CEO, old Mr. Thompson, I mean. He walked through the building every week, knew everyone's names. Tom shook his head. Now we can't even get basic repair supplies without filling out 10 forms. Near closing time, Mike helped Sarah Chen carry some heavy files to her car. She had to park 6 blocks away because of the expensive parking fees. Thanks, Mike, she said. You know, I was going to quit last month, but small kindnesses like this make it easier to stay. On his way out, Mike stopped to talk with the evening security team. One of the guards, James, was working on his laptop during his break. Taking online classes, James explained. Want to move into cybersecurity. The company has openings, but, he shrugged, they only hire from big universities. Back in his temporary apartment, Mike thought about everyone he'd met. Maria with her business degree, Jose and his son's college dreams, Lisa caring for her sick mother, James studying cybersecurity. So much talent and dedication, all being wasted because of rigid policies he had created. He pulled out his phone to text Janet. Need to meet urgently. Big changes coming. Then he started making lists, policies to change, programs to restart, people to promote. His company had incredible employees. They just needed a leader who could see them. As he got ready for bed, Mike looked at his reflection in the mirror. His disguise was perfect. No one suspected he was their CEO. But for the first time in years, he felt like he was seeing his true self clearly. Tomorrow would be another day of learning and listening. But soon, very soon, he would take action to make things right. Dark clouds gathered over Thomson Technologies on Mike's 10th day as a receptionist. The weather service had issued a severe storm warning for the afternoon. From his desk in the lobby, he watched as nervous employees checked their phones for weather updates. At 2:00 p.m., David Wilson and other executives hurried through the lobby with their briefcases. Better head home before the storm hits, David announced loudly. Send an email to your teams. Essential staff only after 3:00 p.m. Mike watched in disbelief as all the senior managers left early. But when regular employees tried to leave, their supervisors stopped them. Sorry, but customer service needs to stay open until 6:00 p.m., one middle manager said. Company policy. Sarah Chen approached Mike's desk looking worried. My last bus home runs at 4:00 p.m. After that, there's no service during storms. Her hands were shaking. But my supervisor won't let me leave. At 3:30 p.m., the storm hit hard. Wind rattled the huge lobby windows, and the rain came down in sheets. The power flickered once, twice, and then went out completely. The backup generator kicked in, but it only powered emergency lights and essential systems. The elevators stopped working. The heating system shut down, and hundreds of employees were still in the building. Mike watched as the maintenance team, led by Tom, sprang into action. They had the lowest-paying jobs in the company, but they worked like heroes. Tom organized his team to check every floor. Dozy from cleaning helped guide people down dark stairwells with flashlights. Everyone stay calm, Robert the security guard announced. He and his team started helping employees call Ubers and arrange carpools. The temperature in the building dropped quickly without heat. Maria Gonzalez from housekeeping brought out emergency blankets she had stored away. I've been keeping these just in case, she said. Management never approved my request for emergency supplies, so I bought them myself. In the dim emergency lighting, Mike saw something amazing happen. Regular employees started helping each other. The team shared their phone chargers. The cafeteria staff made hot coffee and sandwiches for everyone stuck in the building. The maintenance team checked on every single person. But there was no sign of any senior management, no one in charge to make decisions. Mike checked his phone. No emergency messages from any executives. They had all gone home, leaving their teams behind. Around 5 p.m., things got worse. Part of the ceiling in the customer service area started leaking. Mike remembered a memo about roof repairs that he had delayed to save money. Now he watched as Tom and his team rushed to protect expensive computer equipment while water dripped on their heads. "We reported this leak 3 months ago," Tom said tiredly, "but they said it wasn't urgent." A young pregnant woman from accounting felt dizzy from the cold. The first aid team wanted to call an ambulance, but the roads were flooded. James from security gave up his coat to keep her warm. Lisa from HR held her hand and shared her lunch. Mike felt sick watching all this. As CEO, he had cut corners on building maintenance, emergency supplies, and staff safety policies. He had trusted his executives to take care of things. Instead, they had abandoned their teams during a crisis. By 7 p.m., the storm started to ease. The maintenance team had found a way to restore partial power. The cleaning staff worked extra hours to deal with water damage. Not one of them complained about overtime pay. Finally, around 8 p.m., the last employees managed to leave safely. Mike watched as Tom and his team did one final building check, even though they were exhausted and soaking wet. Before leaving, Robert stopped by Mike's desk. "You know what's crazy?" he said. "We handled this emergency without any managers present. Imagine if we had real leadership that cared about people as much as profits." That night, in his temporary apartment, Mike made his final decision. He couldn't wait any longer. The storm had shown him everything wrong with his company's leadership, including his own failures as CEO. He texted Janet, "Meeting tomorrow morning. Time to end this." As thunder rumbled outside, Mike began writing his revelation speech. Thomson Technologies needed more than just policy changes. It needed a complete transformation, starting at the top. 2 weeks after starting his undercover journey, Marcus Thompson stood in front of his bathroom mirror, removing the last traces of his Mike Taylor disguise. 1 hour later, wearing his CEO suit again, he called for an emergency all-hands meeting in the company's main conference hall. By 9 a.m., the hall was packed. Employees whispered among themselves, wondering about the unexpected meeting. Marcus noticed David Wilson and other executives sitting in the front row, looking confident and relaxed. "Where's the new receptionist?" Robert the security guard asked someone. "Mike should be here for this." Marcus walked onto the stage, his heart beating fast. He looked at the faces in the crowd: Sarah Chen worrying about bus schedules, Maria Gonzalez in her cleaning uniform at the back, Tom and his maintenance team standing by the wall. "Good morning," Marcus began. "2 weeks ago, I disappeared. You were told I was visiting international offices." He paused, taking a deep breath. "The truth is, I was here the whole time, working as a temporary receptionist named Mike Taylor." The hall erupted in gasps and whispers. Marcus saw David Wilson's face turn pale. In the back, Robert's eyes went wide with recognition. "I learned more in these 2 weeks than in my last 5 years as CEO," Marcus continued. "I learned that we have incredible employees who are treated poorly. I learned that some of our leaders," he looked directly at David Wilson, "think it's okay to discriminate and bully others." Marcus clicked a button, and photos appeared on the screen behind him. The broken chair at reception, the leaking roof, the dark corridor with broken lights. "I approved expensive renovations for executive floors while ignoring basic repairs. That ends today." He then revealed his first set of changes. Effective immediately, David Wilson and any executives who have shown discriminatory behavior are terminated. Patricia Myers, John Stewart, please clear your offices by noon. The hall was silent now. Marcus continued. "Maria Gonzalez will be our new head of human resources. She has a business degree and more compassion than our entire executive team combined." Maria covered her mouth in shock as her coworkers hugged her. "Sarah Chen will lead our new employee transportation program. We're adding a company shuttle service and reducing parking fees by 70%. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Marcus wasn't finished. "Tom and his maintenance team will have unlimited emergency repair budget. No more waiting for approvals while our building falls apart." He announced more changes. The education assistance program was coming back, stronger than before. Flexible hours for employees with family care responsibilities. A new promotion system based on skills, not degrees. regular employee feedback sessions with direct access to senior management. And Robert. Marcus smiled at the security guard who had shown him such kindness, is our new head of employee relations because he knows more about bringing people together than anyone I've ever met. Then Marcus did something unexpected. He walked off the stage and headed to the back of the hall where the cleaning and maintenance staff stood. I owe you all an apology, he said loudly, so everyone could hear. I forgot what my father taught me, that every person in this company matters. That true leadership means serving others, not just profits. Looking at the shocked faces around him, Marcus added, from now on, every executive, including me, will spend 1 week each quarter working in different departments. We need to know what's really happening in our company. The hall burst into applause. People were crying, hugging, and cheering, but Marcus raised his hand for silence one last time. One more thing, he said. In my office, I have an uncomfortable chair from the reception desk. It will stay there to remind me of what happens when leaders forget to take care of their people. As the meeting ended, employees surrounded him, sharing stories and thanks. Maria hugged him, crying. Robert shook his hand with a proud smile. Even the departing executives couldn't argue. They had seen their own behavior through secret camera footage Marcus had recorded. That evening, as Marcus sat in the wobbling reception chair now in his office, he smiled. Thomson Technologies would be in the news tomorrow, but not for its profits. It would be known as the company that rediscovered its soul. His father would have been proud.